away from the markets, now let's talk about the effective communication, the need for effective communication and transparent governance in the public sector, which are essential for Africa's progress. So the THOP Institute is hosting a flagship conference in November to stimulate conversations among policymakers, industry experts, government officials, and others on key issues that impact Africa's public sector. So let's get more on this now as Kwame Senou, the founder of the Holding Opinion and Public Institute, joins me on the show. Good evening, Kwame. It's good to see you. Let's chat to communication. Now, do you think governments across sub-Saharan Africa are really communicating enough and effectively about governance issues that affect the citizens, in particular the teeming youth of this continent?
We live in a particular time, a time marked by the complexity, ambiguity, volatility and uncertainty. And we also live in a time where we've never been connected this much before. So this is an avenue to drive more fear, low trust in institutions. And in this situation, people need to be driven. People need to hear more than talking, more than information. They need to be motivated. Unfortunately, governments across sub-Saharan Africa are still stuck in that era pre-internet where a government were only pushing the information in the public domain. And that is why we have initiated this conference to discuss this.
So what sort of insights should governments be articulating to the public about socioeconomic policies and actions in order to gain trust and confidence? Because right now, trust and confidence, as you will agree, is in very short supply or dwindling among African populace when it comes to those who are in position of leadership.
Trust in government is at its lowest level ever. And if you look at the numbers, they are so low, below even 30 for most countries. What we need to understand is that people don't react to insights. The population doesn't go by numbers, and government are very good at throwing numbers in the public domain. What they react to is narratives that show that the government is able, that the government is dependable, that the government does what it says we do, that the government acts with integrity, and that also the government can answer one critical question: what is the benefit for the person who is receiving the communication? So any policies that should be pushed forward should very clearly answer to the question, what is in it for you, Boson?
I understand, because again, when you look at corruption issues around Africa, look at ESCOM in South Africa, for example. So our Kenyans are dealing with tax issues, for example, the whole food subsidy removal in Nigeria and how this has been communicated to the public. For example, the third term issue with President Macky Sall in Senegal and across the continent. So how can the public sector achieve effective communication in today's technology age? Like you said, it's not just everybody. We're connected, technologically speaking, but we're not really communicating change that folks want to see happen in their daily lives, my friend.
Yes. What we need to also understand is that government should start to realize that communication, effective communication, starts with credible voice, which they are not. When you look at the Afrobarometer data, politicians rank usually at the lowest. So government needs to realize that they first need to find those credible voices that could be partners, which could be in the NGO, the civil society in general. But government should also be very good at creating public sector brands, because we relate to brand better as society, and the numbers exist to prove that. Being effective in storytelling, showing us the initial situation, the series of changes, the modification that happened, and how effectively the results affect people. But one thing that technology has changed in our world today is a fragmented media landscape. So it is very important for government to have an amplification so that they can be able to reach people. Because in a fragmented media landscape, attention becomes a competition, and you may not be able to achieve it through the official channel alone.
Interesting. So tell me about the forthcoming conference. Who is attending? What are the likely narratives that will be there, Kwame? Give me 1 minute of that.
When we say population in Africa, we have to realize that the population stands for the youth. Because if you look at across sub-Saharan Africa, 2/3, if not 3/4 of the population is below the age of 35. So we decided to start this conference and make it about building trust between the youth and the government. And by government, we mean public sector. So those who will be attending would be people from the public sector in general, government-owned entity, ministries, government agencies. We see a lot of agencies now, but also people from the multilateral institution, as well as people from the private sector, professionals from the private sector, who are in charge of government projects or engage with the government or manage public goods. And it will be happening on November 10 in Abidjan, the CIGC.
Yes, that'll be very good. Thank you so much, Kwame Senou, founder of the Holding Opinion and Public Institute. Thank you so much for this conversation. We wish you and your team all the best. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and enjoy your weekend.